You are listening to the cycling podcast at the Vuelta a España in association with Rapha, the fastest clothing in the world tour, the home of cycling with character. Ride and watch with Rapha in 2019 as they partner EF Education First and Kenyan SRAM. Stage 17. Today we are in Guadalajara.
What a day. Oh my god. We knew it was going to be windy. There's no doubt about that. We knew from kilometre zero it was open. Big mental stress in my own mind to be there, to not let myself down. And then after 2 minutes looking around, full gas in the gutter, sprinting off the car, 7 guys in front, riding full. 220k to go, but just committed, riding full, DS behind, telling us riders, getting dropped, picking them off one by one. Oh, can't really describe the buzz, just slotting through in line, fighting for every wheel. Not sure I'll top this. Really not sure I'll top this.
What a day. Stage 17. Day after a rest day, and from kilometre zero, in the gutter.
Well, we've played in there, Daniel, by little snippets of the audio diaries from today from James Knox of Deceuninck-QuickStep and Nick Schultz of Mitchelton-Scott. We'll hear their diaries in full a bit later on, but what a day, as we heard there. I mean, for James Knox in particular and his team, well, what can we say? What happened? What happened today? And is the loneliest man tonight, apart from me because Lionel hasn't turned up, missed his flight, is the loneliest man tonight not Max Richesi? Is he going to be dining alone, do you think, in the Deceuninck-QuickStep hotel?
He was probably hanging out with his pal, Gaviria. Every time I see him, he's with Gaviria.
Is that why he missed the move?
Well,
today?
probably.
I mean,
Gaviria missed the move, he did, didn't he?
We're sort of
being flippant,
being a little bit flippant, and I'm sure he's not in trouble. But the move today, I mean, I did an interview yesterday with George Bennett of Jumbo-Visma, and that was today's kilometre zero. And in it, he said he was very nervous about today. It was on the plateau, almost to Madrid, and it was very exposed, and they were expecting wind, crosswinds in particular. Crosswinds for the first part of the stage and then a tailwind into the finish. So he was very nervous about today. We've talked a lot about Jumbo-Visma's team here, how strong it is, but it's a team for the mountains, really. And when Deceuninck-QuickStep attacked, really from the start, they put 7 men in a front group of 40-odd riders.
But was the problem today not that they were in fact quite strong, Jumbo-Visma, and they were in the original split, or they had guys in the original split, and they had to go back to help Rog, and that's what caused the problems?
Well, I didn't even know that, Daniel. Is that correct?
I think that is the case.
Because
it was certainly the case with Paulus, but I think there were multiple Jumbo-Visma riders who made the split and had to go back.
Right. Well, we'll hear a bit from Sepp Kuss later on. This happened sort of out of sight because we couldn't watch it. Before I sort of go through the results, let's actually hear from Fran Reyes, who sees better than almost anybody what's happening. He's following race radio, he's working for the organisation, and he's seeing images that we don't see of the early part stage. So I grabbed Fran. I wanted to find out exactly what happened in the early kilometres of the stage. Fran Reyes, fancy bumping into you here. Nobody had probably a better sense of what was happening early in the race today than you and a few other people, and some of the riders as well, but not all of them, because a few of them were stuck behind. But what was your understanding of what happened in the early part of the stage?
Well, what I understand and what I heard too on the race radio and saw in the pictures, I was more or less getting near live, was that Deceuninck-QuickStep launched an attack quite early on.
When you say quite early on, what do you mean?
Kilometer 3 or 4. I mean, they were full gas with all their riders, but Max Richesi, we were speculating earlier that maybe he will sit.
Table for one for Richesi tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Deceuninck went. Movistar team was there as well. Dario Quintana was in the first line along with in the first row in the start line along with Erviti, Rojas and Oliveira, and they clearly had a plan in mind. As well, we can say the same of Team Sunweb. And when the three teams joined forces in the first part of the bunch, it quickly split. And Jumbo-Visma put 2 guys there, Tony Martin and Nelson Powles. But after 10 kilometers, when they realized that they were not not bringing back the group, they dropped quickly in order to help Primoz Roglic, who, by the way, he said that he clearly messed up in the beginning of the stage, that he wasn't where he should have been.
I mean, the Movistar tactics are most interesting, getting behind Quintana in the way they did, and no coincidence that those guys that you mentioned were the guys who made that split, because they're the big engines on that team, aren't they?
Exactly, and it happens the same as in Aramon Formigal. You remember that stage when Alberto Contador turned the Vuelta a España 16 around for and it was helpful for Nairo Quintana. It happens the same. The guys who place themselves in the front row in the start line are the guys who have a plan in mind. Nairo Quintana is quite good at riding in echelons and riding in this kind of racers stage on which it counts a lot to have a tactical sense, and Nairo excels at this.
Fran Reyes, I mean, the headlines from the stage, I suppose, are Philippe Gilbert won the stage, Sam Bennett was second, Remy Cavagna of Deceuninck-QuickStep third. In fact, Deceuninck-QuickStep, they had 4 riders in the top 10 on the stage, and it was really a stage that they, was made for them. It was a kind of, they're a Belgian team, they're very adept at racing in these conditions, and so at one point were the team now known as Jumbo-Visma. In the old days of Rabobank, when there were crosswinds, you would expect that team to be at the front orchestrating things, wouldn't you? Yeah,
I suppose so. But as you said, it's Climbers team they've got here, and they were, the direct supportees were not very happy with them, I don't think. Grisha Nierman, I spoke to at the finish, and he was, the words he used were that they weren't sharp. They weren't sharp enough. It reminded me a bit, Rich, without losing any sense of proportion, or all sense of proportion, it reminded me of the 1971 Tour de France stage to Marseille, somewhat, which we all remember well. I'm sure you were there, Rich. I'm sure you were there podcasting.
We know the story.
The story there was that the stage started at Ancien-Merlet, I think. Lewis Ocaña
day after a rest day as well.
Yeah, and Lewis Ocaña had gained 6 minutes on the previous mountain stage. And that put him well ahead of Eddie Merckx on general classification. And Merckx noticed Ocaña mincing at the start. He was mincing with journalists.
I also read in a revered Merckx biography that Merckx warmed up on the rollers before that stage.
Supposedly in an underground car park under the hotel where his team was staying. And anyway, he saw Ocaña flaneuring, mincing around with journalists, and it was a downhill start. Anyway, Merckx went from the gun. Rinny Wachmans, his teammate, also went from the gun. He was a famed descender. The sort of epilogue of that story was that the group stayed away. There was a tremendous fight all day, and the peloton got to Marseille an hour, 2 hours early. The mayor was so dismayed at this, so disgusted, that the Tour de France didn't return for the next 20 or 30 years.
89 it maybe went back there. It was after he died, actually.
Yes,
it went back.
And today's finish was how early? About an hour?
Did anybody spot the mayor of Guadalajara at the finish?
That's the second mayor we've had in 2 days. We had the mayor of Benidorm yesterday. We've had the mayor of Marseille.
We had some feedback on that, actually. Some people, Jonathan Meads, the brilliant, what is he, academic, intellectual, architecture critic, he did a program about Franco's Spain on the eve of the Tour of Spain, and apparently he tells that story that you told last night in that episode. The other big story was that Nairo Quintana was in that move. Now, we talked about this last night, or you talked about this last night, Daniel, that Nairo man doesn't give up, and here today was an example not only of that, but also of his ability in crosswinds. And there was one stage of the Tour de France a few years ago where he lost out in crosswinds in Holland, but consistently, and I'm thinking of a race like Paris-Nice, when there have been crosswind stages and echelons, he's been up there.
He has, and he relishes it, and I think that's the key, isn't it, with crosswinds? You've got to go in, you can't be sheepish, you can't be tentative, you've got to be up for the cup, you've got to be up for the fight, and Nairo man invariably is. On that, Rich, this morning I overheard a conversation between Primoz Roglic, race leader, and Luis Angel Mate, the Lynx of Marbella, who is always he's everyone's friend, and he seems to have quite a cordial relationship with Rog. Anyway, they were on their way to the start, and Luis Angel Mate said to Rog, tough stage today, got to be careful. And Rog looked at him and said, we're going to go full gas. Very threatening, Rog sounded.
Yeah, but he was going full gas at the wrong, he was in the wrong place to be going full gas, because it did seem and we'll hear this later from James Knox in particular, that it was, and we heard it from Fran Reyes there as well, but it was a case of, a bit like the stage you talk about in 971, the guys at the front of the grid were able to get away, and it was a question of whether you lined up, and this happens so rarely in road racing that where you line up actually matters, but on stages like today, it did.
The fastest clothing in the world tour, the home of cycling with character. Ride and watch with Rapha in 2019 as they partner EF Education First and Canyon SRAM.
The two most important things are a saddle and a chamois or a short, and you want it to feel good. I am Sepp van Marke, I ride for EF Education First. In the past I struggled sometimes with the saddle sore, and with the new shorts I haven't had any problem yet, so I really like the new shorts. They said it was a new model of chamois. For me the bib shorts are the best that I ever had.
Thank you very much indeed to Rapha, our title sponsor. Now, somebody who enjoyed today thoroughly, Daniel, was Hugo Kurvitz, our colleague at Het Nieuwsblad, who's here covering the race for the Belgians, and he's had a pretty quiet time of it. He had a good day the day that Philippe Gilbert won, but Hugo, who famously doesn't book any hotels, only books them on the day, lives by the seat of his pants, but he's a great character, and he was rubbing his hands with glee at what was unfolding today. So I spoke to him mid-stage. Hugo Kurvitz, I've seen you some days at the Vuelta, looking a little bit kind of, maybe even bored, but you're not bored today, are you?
No, I think we have today a typically Belgian race with many Spanish riders and with people who are not used to ride against the wind, and everybody will sleep good tonight, I think.
Deceuninck-QuickStep, they're really good at this. You went to their hotel yesterday, you said, and spoke to Wilfred Peters.
I said to Wilfred Peters yesterday, it's a pity that we could not, that there is no race today, because it was really autumn weather, windy, rain. I said yes, but I looked for tomorrow, the forecast for today, and there's a little bit less wind, but like we say in Flemish, we all gonna put them on the kant by the wind, and he knew the first part they could do a panicos call, like they call it in Spanish, and the second part it's wind in the back. He predicted a very nervous stage for everybody, and the plan was really to bring James Knox further ahead in the general ranking. That's the reason why they did also today with 7 of the 8. They don't have the lead out for Jacobsen, but they have all the other guys.
Well, it gives you something to write about for tomorrow, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I always had to write stories like today about Karl Fredrik Hagen, who came from cross country. His story, but there happened not so much. There were also always two races into the race, but now I think we have 2 races in one race, and that's just a nice thing. That I don't say that the Vuelta has restarted, but it can be.
Hugo Kurvitz there, the Het Nieuwsblad cycling writer, and said he'd been to see Wilfred Peters yesterday. And I mean, I think everybody knew that today was potentially a dangerous day, but it was the fact it was the longest stage, I think, of the race, 219 kilometres, and the fact that the move went so early that did catch a few people on the hop. As I say, it's so unusual in cycling that where you line up for the start of the stage matters, but it did matter today.
Yeah, I think so. It was 3 kilometres, wasn't it, where the move went? Sometimes it's you look at stages like today and the people who lost time, and you can't quite fathom how it's allowed to happen. And particularly, how there isn't a moment when it's at 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, where they can't rally somehow. But almost more than a time trial, it is the race of truth, in the sense that if there is a tailwind or a cross tailwind, and you've got sort of 75, 80 kilo quick step guys at the front, if you're not on their wheel, if you're not, if you're a metre away from the wheel as the train's leaving, you're not going to get on. I guess that's what happens, and I think there was probably a moment, well, more than a moment, there were probably several minutes of confusion and reorganisation, and that's all it took and all it takes. There were some really interesting things tactically that were happening later in the race with the Movistar contingent in the group behind attacking on a rise, was that about 30 kilometres from the finish? Again, this provoked the usual sort of outcry about Movistar tactics. What are they doing? They're chasing Quintana. Valverde explained afterwards that what they were trying to do was get rid of the domestiques who had been pulling very hard to try to bring Quintana back or try to bring the gap in. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know, but Valverde was very bullish, and he was very, he sort of took umbrage at anyone who suggested that Movistar's tactics weren't good today. He said they were tactically perfect.
Well, it kind of worked as well. It did get rid of a few tired guys, and just that change in pace meant that the gap closed a little bit, but then it opened out again. And so I think it kind of worked. And I think, as we heard from Fran Reyes earlier on, it was very notable that the guys who Movistar placed at the front of the grid and who went with Quintana in the front group and who did work in that front group were the kind of rulers that Movistar have, the big engines. You know, I think that Movistar played a bit of a blinder. I mean, Quintana is up to, whether he can still challenge, who knows, because he hasn't looked great in the mountains, but he's up to second overall at 2:24 now. So Roglic got out of jail. He got out of jail largely thanks to Astana, and it would have been a different story today had Superman made it into that front group. Then the Vuelta would have been transformed.
They'd have been playing calypso music up there. Or,
it would have been amazing.
Reggae, or at least reggaeton.
However, it didn't happen, and what I spoke to Dario Cataldo at the finish. Let's hear what he said now. Just a very hard day.
Yeah, we expected, because with this wind, everybody knows that it can be dangerous. We didn't expect being Quintana in a breakaway so big, and at the beginning we expect that Jumbo can close very quickly, but at the end was getting too far the breakaway, and we had to pull also. Okay, we spent more energy than expected, but it's okay.
So that's Dario Cataldo, the Astana rider, who said that they initially sat back and waited for Jumbo-Visma to close the gap. That was optimistic, given that, as you say, there were these 75 to 80 kilo Deceuninck-QuickStep riders in the front group, and Sepp Kuss, Neilson Powless, George Bennett, and these guys aren't going to be able to very easily close that gap. And as we saw at the Tour de France, on these stages when echelons form, if you don't close that gap quickly, and we had a bit of a debate about this, about whether the chasing group at the Tour misjudged it, that they tried to close the gap too quickly. But you've got to try and close it quickly, or it gets you can't gradually bring it back, especially when you've got so many strong riders in that front group. You've got to close it, or it's gone. Anyway, that was Dario Cataldo. Another person I spoke to at the finish was one of the people who was really instrumental in that group going, Tim Declercq, what do we call him? The plough, the tractor. He's just an incredible workhorse. We heard from him last week in the podcast about the life of the domestique, and he is such an incredible team rider. Philippe Gilbert was asked about him afterwards, actually. He said he'll really miss him next year when he's not a teammate. Suggested he was the best teammate in the world. And he's not been picked yet for the Belgian team for the World Championships. 5 riders have been picked out of 8. He may well get the nod on today's performance alone. His father as well, I learned today, is a comedian in Belgium, Karel Declercq, who regularly appears on television. He's got an interesting song about Patrick Lefevre. But Tim Declercq was instrumental today, had a big job. Here he was at the finish. Well, you did what you do best there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a difference from what I normally do. Normally I have to ride more defensive, and now I could ride offensive, what is always a little bit more nice. We knew Bennett was the man to beat in the final. From the beginning on, I committed fully to the echelon because we also had James, so it was perfect. We knew it was a hard finish, and for sure after such a stage, I said from the moment it started to rise, I said I'm gonna give one good pull to make it as hard as possible for Sam. That was a bit of tactic that I had, me and the team had in mind. It was perfectly followed up by Stevie. At one moment I thought he takes the win, but then Phil could stay on the wheel of Sam, who had to start his sprint quite early, so I think it was a really textbook finish.
A sort of Belgian style racing today, was it you guys who really took initiative at the start? Was that your plan to break up so early?
Oh yeah, it's and before the start I was actually quite nervous because I'm quite good at pulling hard for a long time, but to the fighting to be in the break in the first echelon, that's not my best part. So I said it's better we start from kilometer 0. I think we were all in the front, and a lot of teams thought I think it's too long to split it up from the start, but in the end we did maybe what the other ones did not expect.
And when you look around and you see 6 teammates and James Knox, that must have been a great feeling.
Yeah, it was perfect, and I think everybody gave himself completely. So it was nice. It's this. Maybe the real mountains are not our best terrain, but here we find it again, so that's nice.
And while we're hearing from riders, Daniel, let's hear from Owain Doull as well, the Team Ineos rider riding his first Grand Tour, and he made that front group. Here he is at the finish. I've rarely seen such tired faces coming across the line. Can you describe that day for me?
Just manic. Everyone knew it was going to be windy, and literally from the off, people were fighting for the car and the neutral, and literally flag dropped, and that was it. I think the guys who started in the first 40 or roughly were in the front, and then we just didn't slow down all day. It was absolutely crazy, actually.
I need to ask, was it Deceuninck-QuickStep who really put the hammer down as far as you could see?
No, not particularly. I think it was just, obviously they were a really organised team, but it was just a combination of everyone at the front. If you were in that front echelon, you were committing, and it wasn't a case of one team more than anyone else, but it was just who was there. If you're in it, you're in a good place, so you commit. And it was just a hard day. Obviously, I think there was 40 of us to start with, and then there was a climb and a descent, and it's split in half, and guys just getting shelled all day. And I think that was the hardest day of the Vuelta for me.
It's the longest day as well. So when you got away, and obviously you realised the competition in the group, who was behind, did you think this is going to be it for the day?
You kind of have that in the back of your mind, but I didn't think that necessarily this would be it, or we'd be pushing so hard for so long. I don't know what the gap was at the end, but we had points where 5-6 minutes ahead, and obviously for us we didn't have anyone for GC. Teams were just committing, and it was hell for leather all day.
Well, you had a ringside seat on an exciting day's racing.
It was nice to be in the front, not in the back, so I'll take it.
Yeah, you must have enjoyed that.
Well, maybe not enjoyed.
When you reflect on it.
I don't think it would have been the best idea when I have to start a mountain stage tomorrow. I think I'll be feeling it in my legs.
At the end of today, Roglic still over 2 minutes ahead. Will he look at that as a day where he got out of jail?
Yeah, I think so, Rich. I'm not sure it's going to change that much as far as he's concerned, although, the one doubt is how much energy today has cost, each of the protagonists. The Movistar guys, Valverde was at pains to point out that he'd been in the wheels all day. I think everyone took a bit of wind today, didn't they? He felt that he'd not gone too deep today. I don't know how deep Roglic had to go. The one concern I would say for Rog, is that the last 2 mountain stages, so starting with tomorrow and then there's another one Saturday, the climbs aren't particularly steep. They're not as steep as the climbs we've seen so far. And tactically, they look like interesting ones. There are some valleys that need to be dealt with. There's a finish which is not at altitude tomorrow, and that always throws up interesting scenarios of teams putting guys down the road. Then the stage on Saturday is also very interesting. It's a difficult one to read. It's not your sort of usual mountain stage, sort of crocodile's teeth, shark's teeth mountain stage. It's sort of there are a couple of sort of second, third category climbs, and then the final climb again is not that hard, but it's a climb where you can probably ride with quite a lot of speed, as we saw at La Cubilla, and open up reasonable gaps. So I don't think he'll be relaxing, and he'll probably want some explanations from some of his teammates as to what went wrong, maybe.
Well, let's hear an explanation from Sepp Kuss, shall we? Of sorts. This was Sepp Kuss at the finish.
It's a hard day, I think. We maybe didn't expect, really, didn't even seem like an attack really that went in the very beginning, but it was like, I think all of QuickStep was in there, so good move by them. It's a hard team to close down on the flats and wind. Tough effort in the beginning, but even when it's not an ideal situation, you just have to stay calm. And
when you realised Quintana was up there, especially, I guess he was the main threat. What did you do as a team? Because we didn't see any of this. So was there a bit of panic?
No, not really any panic. I mean, we knew we had to immediately start riding, but you can't ride full gas for 200 plus K, so you just have to do it in a measured way, and then hope that some other teams might chip in a bit. So
I mean, you have got a team here very much with an emphasis on the mountains, I guess, as we've seen. This was a different kind of stage, a dangerous kind of stage, but do you think it will have done any damage to Roglic's hopes of winning?
No, I don't think so. I mean, for a guy like me, it's a hard effort to pull on the flat, and it takes more out of me than a bigger guy. But yeah, I contributed everything I could until I was absolutely dead, and then you ride in easy to finish. So anytime you have the jersey, it's always an effort. So.
The Cycling Podcast is supported by Science in Sport. Science in Sport, fueled by science.
Thank you very much to Science and Sport for supporting the Cycling Podcast, and you can still get 25% off with the code SISCP25 at scienceinsport.com. Big thanks to them. And Daniel, we had our press conference episode last night. Inevitably, I answered the question, I had to leave you for this, but the question about whether the Vuelta, why the Vuelta doesn't go to Portugal, it doesn't seem to go to Portugal. We got lots of reactions to that, inevitably also from Killian Kelly at Irish Peloton on Twitter, who told me a while ago to say that he has been waiting for his thanks for being a friend of the podcast, and indeed that was the only reason he actually became a friend of the podcast, and also to say that he's a great guy, he said. So thanks for that, Killian. He also got in touch today to say that 1997 is the only time the Vuelta has been to Portugal, when it started in Lisbon. You think that it did actually go into Portugal a few years ago?
Yeah.
2014?
Well, I was there, and I'm quite confident they went into Portugal. But I'll check.
Killian knows everything, though, so it's...
So does Google.
I think Killian...
I mean, I'm not saying that Killian...
Killian.com.
I'm not saying that Killian Googles everything. I'm saying that I will find out via Google.
Killian.com is better than Google.com, I think. But anyway, he knows a lot, and that's what he says. So let's have a look.
The stage that I thinking about, Richard, could have been stage 10 in 2014. But I'm going to check it out.
Okay.
Before we 13 maybe.
Before we hear from our rider diaries, I must say that tomorrow, Thursday, Stacey Snyder's mugs, the second batch of Vuelta mugs, go on sale at 12 noon Spanish time and 4 o'clock in the afternoon Spanish time. That is 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. US East Coast time, and 8 p.m. and 12 o'clock, presumably midnight, Australian time. So she's doing two windows to buy the next batch of cups. So got a couple of chances there. Go to etsy.com/shop/Snyder Ceramics, SNYDER Ceramics. They'll go very quickly, they always do, and they're raising money for two good causes. The Bike Project, which refurbishes bikes for refugees, and volunteers help them ride their bikes, their new bikes. And Andy's Man Club as well is the other good cause, and we received very nice nominations for both of those good causes, so we're very happy to support them. So let's hear from our rider diarists, James Knox of Deceuninck-QuickStep and Nick Schultz of Mitchelton-Scott. First James, then Nick.
Oh, what a day. Oh my god. Don't know what to say. Knew it was going to be windy. There's no doubt about that. We knew from kilometre 0 it was open. Big mental stress in my own mind to be there, to not let myself down. And then after 2 minutes looking around, full gas in the gutter, sprinting off the car, 7 guys in front, riding full. 220k to go, but just committed, riding full, DS behind, telling us riders, getting dropped, picking them off one by one. Can't really describe the buzz, just slotting through in line, fighting for every wheel, in a different place for the last 50k, just hanging on for dear life. I did a lot of work, I got too excited at the start, thought I was the absolute man, and then really suffered. You know, it's difficult to eat, it's difficult to drink. Fabio got dropped. It was always going to be a hard day for him, but it was up and down as well as crosswinds, and we were committed to Phil. But really, in the end there, I had nothing left to give. You know, I didn't want to let the boys down, but watching Zdeněk attack, 2k to go, hesitation in the bunch, Ineos trying to drag it back, Bennett launching a cross over the top, Phil going after him, cross the line, 4 of us in the top 10, first, third, Not sure where Tim was, and myself 10th. Hands in the air, celebrating it as a team. It was really... not sure I'll top this. Really not sure I'll top this. You know, GC's gone well, but wow, this has been an unbelievable day on the bike, you know. And the satisfaction from knowing how much everyone suffered from behind, suffering behind, but still going backwards. GC rivals 20 minutes down, up to 8th. Well, you know, I'll have to fight now and try and hold on. Everyone's going to be dead tomorrow. We'll see what happens. Try and recover the best I can. I mean, I hope it was good viewing. It was good racing. Really stressful, these crosswinds. I was along the limit physically and mentally. Lost my temper a couple of times. You know, full angry little man. Sort of racing got the better of me a couple of moments when you're switching from one side of the road to the other with the whiplash of guys. And yeah, no, it was really... These days you just... I can't really describe what it's like. And just the speed as well all day. You know, we were in crosswinds for the first 120k, and then it was more or less tailwind for the last 100. 50k an hour for 220k. That's something. That's really something. Oh, I'm going to enjoy this tonight. The morale in the team, over the line, just so special to be part of something like this in a Grand Tour. The old fox Phil taking the win. Of course he would. Just the old fox. He was never going to let that one slip through his fingers. Brilliant stuff. And he's just a killer. He's just got that killer instinct. Knew what he had to do. He played it perfectly. So proud of everyone. Just everyone rode the absolute hearts out for me for the stage win. I'll take this one through for the rest of my life. That was really, really beautiful. Awful, absolutely awful, but yeah, special day. Thanks for listening.
What a day. Stage 17. Day after a rest day, and from kilometre 0, in the gutter. I've heard whispers that it's the fastest Grand Tour stage in history. Wouldn't surprise me. Kilometre 0 to kilometre 220, just full noise. No time to relax, no time to do anything really. Eating and drinking was hard to do, let alone anything else. Super high stress, and yeah, one of the hardest days I think most people have probably ever had on a bike, considering it was not really supposed to do that, but I guess that's what Mother Nature can produce. Basically, how it unfolded, almost immediately a massive group rode off the front, and weirdly it sort of didn't seem to be forced. It just kind of happened, a natural split, I guess, and a few people probably thinking, it's the start of the race, so this will all come back together, and there's not really a heap of big GC hitters in the front, so they'll shut it down, etc., and next thing you know, it was gone, and that basically led to a very, very tough day for Jumbo-Visma. All guys had to absolutely drill it all day, and they were up against 40 or 50 guys essentially, so that was not an easy task, but credit to them, they took it up, and they did a really good job of limiting their losses, with Roglic still staying in the jersey. Otherwise it was just absolutely full gas, and these days I think are some of the most nervous that you can actually get in cycling, more so even than a mountain day for big guys like this. It's all about position, sometimes a little bit about luck as well, the right time, the right place. A lot can happen, as we've seen, on a day where essentially nothing should happen if there wasn't any wind. But I'm sure it was a great spectacle. It was almost fun to be a part of, despite how hard it was. A real sort of get stuck in type day, and another one ticked off, and we're getting closer to Madrid. Some mountains to come, and we're all looking forward to it now. It's the hard racing's taking its toll on the peloton, except for Knoxy there. He just seems to be getting better every day. Another great ride by him, and great to see him moving up the up the standings there into the top 10, and the way he's going, he might even be touching the top 5 by the end. We'll see. Cheers.
Daniel, you're making some very unusual noises there.
Depends. Basically, the stage 19 of the 2014 Vuelta from Salvaterra de Minho to Cangas do Morazo. If it didn't go into Portugal, it was literally 10 meters from Portugal. But it might have gone into Portugal in a place called Tiu, which I don't know whether to pronounce that in a Portuguese fashion or a Spanish fashion, but it's right on the Minho River, which is the border basically, and it depends which way it went through town.
It does remain a bit of a mystery that it doesn't go into Portugal more often.
Yeah, but there's been a lot of talk in the last few years about the big start in Porto. In fact, that was widely rumoured, certainly a couple of years ago, and I was quite surprised that didn't actually come to pass.
Well, shall we wrap things up for tonight? We're in a beautiful place, aren't we? We can actually see Madrid from here, incredibly. We're on a plateau at how many meters? 750?
Yeah, and we can also reach around the other side of the building. We can see the Sierra de Madrid, where the race is going tomorrow. It's going up some very famous climbs. One very famous climb, particularly the Navacerrada, which I think, I'm not going to check this now, but I think it's probably the most climbed climb in Vuelta history. I think.
Great. And are we going to see any... I mean, is Roglic does he look a bit more vulnerable tonight than he did last night? More his team than him, perhaps. But the sort of stages we're going to have are not going to be like today's, are they?
No, I mean, he's more vulnerable by virtue of the fact that he's got more men in a position to shoot at him now, isn't he?
And we have to, I think, before we go tonight, we have to...
mention Pog.
Well, Pog was another...
I thought Pog looked quite nifty today. I mean, I know he was in the wrong group. But
which was a bit surprising, in a way.
Yes, he was separated from his sort of guard dogs, Troya and Marcato, who were both in the front group, and they got sent back, didn't they? At least one of them got sent back.
It's the problem with driving on your own, Daniel. You can't see everything that happens. But we have to pay tribute, I think, to Deceuninck-QuickStep, who really grabbed the race by the throat today and did what they do so well. And what a classy kind of performance, not just from the whole team, apart from Max Richese, who I'm sure has a good excuse for missing that move. But in the finale, Zdeněk Stybar, they identified Sam Bennett as the main threat, clearly. He's won 2 stages, he's fastest finisher. And the way that they established a plan to beat him was, I thought, really impressive. Stybar attacked with about 2.5 kilometers to go, and in the end, Bennett himself had to kind of launch his sprint pretty early to get up to Stybar. Looked like he'd done it, but Gilbert, I mean, as we heard James Knox's diary, called him a wily old fox. It was brilliant, and it was just an absolute masterclass in tactics and in riding in crosswinds. And for those who enjoy watching that, which is a lot of people, it was brilliant to watch. So that's all from us for tonight. Daniel's got nothing to add to that. Just nodding in agreement.
Me on crosswinds is a bit like you on wine. I mean, I've run out of superlatives very quickly.
Were they nice? Were they nice? They were nice. The crosswinds. Look at that building's lighting up over there. What's going on? Is it on fire?
It's extraordinary. Oh, yeah. No, it's just the sun, Rich. That's what happens when the sun shines off glass.
Okay, right.
I don't know if you've seen that phenomenon before.
Before we go, thanks to some friends of the podcast, and I have to tell you that Connor Dunn has been keeping an audio diary from the Tour of Britain. That'll go out as a friend special, I think next week, possibly. And apparently it's very, very entertaining. So look forward to that. And thank you to all those who've signed up. Obviously, Killian Kelly, mention him again. Stephen Tiffany, Damon Maloney, Magnus Petersons, Peter Bowden, Matthew Burns, Gerard Hartley, Susan Motley, and Alexander Horn.
Christopher Wagner, Clifton May, Joseph Kendall, Ross Hallard. Since we're in Spain, that should probably be Ayar with double L. And Greg Watson, Peter Court, Glenn Wigley, and Kirill Hajduk.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Richard.